Ladies and gentlemen, kids of all ages, welcome back to Behind the Hype. Today I am actually talking to a video. I'm talking with David. Last video, you didn't see faces. Hopefully this time we will see faces because as this computer screen hits my eyes, they're really a radiant blue, and I would like for other people to see that. Anyways, today we have a monster in the Facebook ads world. I got to make sure I say his name properly, otherwise he won't talk to me or buy me beers at events. So, David Schloss.
There you go.
Yeah, we got David Schloss here today. He's going to talk about all things online. Again, there is no format whatsoever. We're going to get going. Should he feel compelled to help you out and give you this like crazy walkthrough of shit, great, he will. If he doesn't, you're going to get tons of content out of what he has to say. Anyways, so it's all good. David, welcome to the show, my man.
Appreciate it, Bill. This is going to be fun.
I hope so. If it's not fun, just let me know because I've done something seriously wrong.
No problem.
So let us know the whole deal. I mean, everybody wants to know where people come from, like how their background started, and then you can just kind of like lead into where you're at today. And then I guess I'll just, find what you're after or where you're at. I'll pick some things out and ask questions on that. But let us know who you are, like where you came from, and what you're doing now, man.
Sure. So, hey everyone, name's David Schloss. Born and raised in Miami, Florida. Basically got started in the online marketing, internet marketing world about 9 years ago now. It's 9 years ago as of the 1st. And I started from my college apartment because I needed money. And so 18 years old, University of Florida, living in an apartment because dorms were all gone, and I had no money to live in that apartment. So I basically started online marketing as a desperation way to pay for my tuition, my books, you name it. And so 9 years ago, the first search I ever completed was how do I make money online? That is how everything started. And in doing just that, the fact that I went to school for finance, I didn't even go for marketing. I went for finance and completely got submerged into the online marketing world to the point where I almost flunked out my first semester. Like, that's how dedicated I was to getting started in business. And I opened my first business as a SEO consultant in January 1st of 2010, and that's where Rampify was born. And it started out as an SEO company. I was doing, link building and content writing and all this stuff. I think I was, 20, 21 years old doing this for people. Up until when I graduated in 2011, I focused entirely on paid ads. And so from then on, all I've done is social advertising for people. Facebook, YouTube, I do retargeting. And it all stemmed from the fact that, well, one, as much as I enjoyed doing SEO, I started to hate it over some time. And as I made that transition over into social ads in my younger portion of my 20s, that's when I started to notice the trend up until what I'm doing right now. I'm only 27, and I've been doing this since I was 18. And so I've been, taking care of clients for what seems like 6 years now. I've been someone who's educated people on various topics, Facebook ads and YouTube. I've done courses with, Ben Atkins before. I did a course just recently in the Facebook arena. So I've been around the block, so to speak, when it comes to doing any sort of online marketing. And I'm the type of person who, when I learn something, I go and do it, and then I'll report back, make some tweaks, go do it again. And that's probably why most of you may not even know who I am. Because instead of just talking about it all the time, I'm so ingrained in doing it that I'm just a really good executor. So that's who I am.
That's cool, man. No, I like that because there's a bunch of points that you touch on. But one of the recurring themes for me when it comes to SEO and all that stuff, I was just talking about that again the other day because I like to poo-poo SEO. I know that it's powerful, but I just... Yeah. As far as people getting started, I mean, to get into ads, I honestly feel that's a little better because, there's a whole bunch of depth behind the ads and the stuff that you need to do. But when it comes to, the application of it, you know what you're doing, right? You're doing ads, you're creating ads and you're making them better, and you're working on a small portion of the funnel. Whereas with SEO, you've got so many different services that a new person doesn't even know what the hell to offer. So how do you find that transition? Well, they don't, you know. I mean, I did that, and I ended up just doing the mobile websites because you do some SEO, and the guy just like, the client doesn't know what to expect, and yet they want to be on page one, but there's so much to get to page one, especially if they're in a big metropolitan area. So it's just like, it's really, I don't know, it's more complicated for a new person to get into, in my opinion, because there's so many layers of what SEO, and it changes, right? I mean, the biggest thing you worry about is Facebook changing their back office. Is that about right? Or one of these paid traffic? Or what's the biggest, what's the biggest hurdle you come across with doing the paid traffic?
Well, let's just talk about the last 12 months, right? Because, you know, Bill, you know me, whenever something happens, I post about it. Right? Oh, new power editor. Oh, new ad objective. By the way, check your CPMs. You know, like something is always changing, but it's not where Facebook goes, hey, today we have power editor and tomorrow the power editor's gone.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the biggest change that I've experienced with Facebook just in the last 12 months is they're shifting in how they are pricing things. You know, they used to have, you know, OCPM, and they still do, but it's completely different in terms of like how they mention it in their ad platform. Now it's like, oh, it's optimized for conversions. That's the same thing, but all the pricing's changed. Some of the industries I target now are more expensive than they used to be. There's new ad objectives that I've never tested before that appeared. You know, Instagram ads became a reality for a lot of people this year. So that's just 12 months that they've made a bunch of changes, but they haven't removed anything. Sort of like what Google does, where it's like, hey, you know, building blog networks are awesome. Go ahead and do it. And then a year later, oh, by the way, if you built a blog network, you're going to get removed from search results.
Yeah, it seems like Google likes to like, they like to like give their advertisers a certain amount of traction, and then it's like, okay, if you want to stay in our game and you want to stay in our pool, you've got to handle the water that we just changed, and we changed the entire pool. Whereas Facebook, the one thing I've noticed with their ads platform is no matter what they add, it's very similar, and all you're going to end up seeing is like a different wording change in a different little tab that you can pop into, but they don't really like overhaul, because we did a course a while back, and it was Facebook ads, and the very next day they had changed the platform.
Yeah.
Right? And people are like, it doesn't work, but really the wording was just a little bit different, and it was the same thing. So, I mean,
exactly.
They don't change too much. So which would you say is easier if you're a new person to get involved in? Would you say SEO or paid traffic? Forget the budget. Like, let's just assume that people have some money to spend because they understand it's a business.
Yeah.
And you got to spend some money. Like, which one would you say is the way to go?
Well, here's the thing. So it really depends on two things. One, are you willing to spend some of your own money to do some testing? Because both require you to spend a little bit, right? And two, how much time does it take for you to have enough of a result to then go pitch someone to do it for them, right? Because most people, when they start with social ads or PPC or SEO, you kind of need some funds, and most people will go the client route, right? But what happens when you jump in the client route? You need to have some results to show to people. So when I started with Facebook ads, for example, I had $500 to spend on testing, enough to where I had click data, I had opt-in data. You know, I was just testing out whether or not people would be okay with downloading some sort of free report. So I had enough data to go to someone and say, hey, look, I can get you leads from Facebook. Here's an example, right? And so I put $500 of my own money, got a couple of results, and what it really taught me was how to be a conversion analyst as much as a pay-per-click marketer or a social ads marketer. And so you're able to understand the lingo, understand how to promote it, understand how to sell it. And that's why I believe with pay-per-click or social ads or, you know, Facebook, let's just say you want to sell Facebook ads, you have to dive in the platform a little bit yourself, get some results for yourself before you can go ahead and start selling it to someone else. Because once you get in the client game, you now have funds to do what it is you want. That's why I got into it. It's like, this is not only going to help me pay my bills, but whatever's left over is going to help me create the projects I really want to do, which is, you know, sell digital education or open an e-commerce store. Whereas with SEO, okay, I'm doing SEO for myself. I got a site to rank. Maybe it's an affiliate site. I made some sales. Great. Okay, well now I have to wait for that traffic to come back. I got to maintain my ranking so that I could still have a lot of traffic, but there's still no guarantee that they're going to buy. And a lot of SEOs are not conversion analysts, so they don't think about whether or not a site is going to get them 10 more signups this month versus the 5 they got last month. And they don't run traffic, so their traffic can get stagnant, or it can go higher, or it can go lower, and it's all dependent on Google. And a lot of the guys that I know in the SEO space, they either focus all on getting clients, or they get all, affiliate sites, and they rank them fast, and they do a bunch of that stuff. And some of them love it, and some of them hate it, and that's typically what I see. It's like this love-hate relationship with SEO. Whereas with social ads, or I keep calling it that because I do a variety of different ones, but with Facebook, I don't know anyone who hates it unless their account got banned for some stupid reason, or they just can't seem to get something to convert, which is as much of a education thing as it is about the offer. Because if they know a lot about a platform and they know a lot about a niche, they also know that it does take time, and it takes some rotating, it takes some copy changes and offer changes and a variety of other things to get something to convert. But that could be frustrating, but that doesn't mean that they're going to go, oh, screw this, I'm done. I don't want to change my landing page, so I don't want to do Facebook ads. That's not usually how it goes. And so to me, it looks like the barrier to entry is a lot better with something like Facebook ads than it would be in SEO.
Okay, so that brings up a good question. I've got my chair like extra low because I don't have that cool clicking camera that goes up and down like yours. He's got this awesome camera, like we're talking, and he just starts pushing buttons, and it's like so it's cool. So okay, so the thing that I'm hearing you say a lot that I don't think everybody talks about when it comes to ads, it almost sounds like you should understand and comprehend conversion before you start spending the money. Is that appropriate? Like, would you say, like, say you go out and you get this, like, kind of broad market, but you can make some sales with it. Do you think it's more powerful to know the conversion tactics and stuff you should have on the page? Because every business owner, let's just say, or online marketer, they understand that SEO exists or that ads exist. But their problem is that they always have terrible results from it. And you're right, SEO companies don't typically worry about conversions, and if they do, it's an extra add-on kind of deal. Whereas it sounds like it's a lot more tied directly into what you're doing because the impact is so quick. So would you say that conversions and learning about conversions are important? And if so, what parts of conversion should they be focusing their energy on learning? Like, say if you want to go out and run your e-com, like we've got e-com people on here, we've got affiliates on here that are going to be watching this. Like, what part of conversion should they start focusing on to start driving that traffic?
Well, let me put it this way. When I first started with my Facebook ads for my own stuff, the core thing that I was looking at was just the headline. Is the headline enticing enough to get someone to opt in, right? With webinars, I always look at the headline, and then I look at the call to action button. Like, okay, if I change the headline from, hey, you should sign up for this webinar, to here's 10 ways that you can improve your bottom line in 2016. Well, it looks like option number 2 is going to perform better, and let's say it does. Now my next thing is going to be understanding, maybe the color scheme needs to be changed. Does that affect how many people sign up versus, blue or green? Or is the button orange or red? Or is the text buy now versus check this out? Little experiments like that is essentially conversion analysis, right? What percentage of people opted in the first time versus how many people opted in the second time with the new experiment?
When you're going with that mindset, would you start with a base page and then move on to, and then make like several, like with lead pages and shit these days, you can just click and you got a brand new similar page, you just change color of the button. How many would you start, like, how many tests would you start off with? Say you're me, I'm new, I want to get out there, I want to start running, I got this really cool webinar course and they did like half-assed ads explanation. How many pages should I start with to get the testing down? Because I mean, like you said, to me it was those little things, like when someone's like, I only share this with my $9,000 clients. That's an enticing little piece of content to have there right at the bottom. It's just that like, oh shit, this is important. So how many pieces of info would you have, or how many page setups would you have to test originally?
Right, so you have your base page, right, the original. And what I usually do is I focus on certain elements first, right? So the first element I always focus on is the headline. Then I focus on the call to action button. And this is just because my clients operate that way, so I have sort of adapted their methodology, right? So change of the headline, because that's the first thing they see. They see the headline.
And are you doing drastic tweaks to the headline, or are you just doing little minor word changes?
No. See, a lot of my clients, and including myself, we write like these really detailed like headlines where it's like, here's 10 ways in 2016 that you can improve your bottom line, get more clients, charge more, and have more free time with your family. It's like, holy shit, that's a lot of stuff. But guess what? If I change that from, the 10 ways to these steps have allowed me to spend more time with my family, make more money, have less clients, and truly do what I want to do, find out how. That's a completely different headline with the same topic.
Yeah.
And so all I did was create a variation of the page, same layout, same everything, different headline.
Cool.
And I'd run ads to both and see, okay, the people who landed here obviously connected with this headline versus the other.
And would you be running those to the same group of targeted people, or are you running in two separate? Because, I mean, like if I see the same different ad, like if I click on the first one, right, and then the next ad comes in, how are you getting accurate data out of that is kind of the question.
Right, so when I'm rotating a landing page, what I didn't mention is I'm also rotating ads, right? So when I am running Facebook ads, I typically, within each ad set, have a minimum of 3 ads running, right? So 3 different ad images with the same ad copy. Same ad copy. The status portion, the headline portion, and the newsfeed description. They're all the same for each of the ads. The difference is that they all have different images. So with my ad, what I'm testing is which of the images are generating the most clicks and which ones are generating conversion, right? But on the other side of the coin, when I have my split test experiment with the landing page, what I'll see is, okay, ad number 1 is performing better than ad number 3, but variation 1 is doing better than variation 2 on the landing page.
Okay.
Same ad group, the ad copy is all the same, but it's the image is different on the front, and then on the back end, it's the landing pages that are rotating. That make sense?
Yeah, no, that's cool. I mean, you're testing it right up, and that's, all right, that's cool. That's paying some attention to what's going on in front of your face, which is cool. And I think, honestly, just out of that, I mean, people can go into some of those half-assed ads course that we've talked about and be able to be like, oh, okay, that makes a little more sense. So that's cool. What would you say, ideal, right? I'm a new person, so we've got the pages, we've got all that wonderful stuff. We've got our ads, we've got our focus. We know what we're going to do. I'll probably do a little map or something for them on a PDF or something. But what would you say is an appropriate budget? Because this is one that's always like, you'll hear people that are like, just do like $5 a day. And then you'll hear people that are like, well, $20 a day. And then you've got other people that are like, I won't mess around unless I give it a big go with $100 a day for the first little one, and then I'll scale back kind of deal. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm one of those $5 a day people, and here's why. First off, that is my belief, one of the lowest amounts that you could spend per day where you could still get enough results to gauge whether or not what you're doing is working, right? $5 a day, 30 days in a month, let's just say, you're only spending $150. I know plenty of people, even with 40-hour-a-week jobs that can afford a $150 test, right?
Well,
even if you have a part-time job.
Let's stop them right here. If you are on this call and trying to run your ads successfully, suck it up and commit $150. I mean, we've already got a nice story, dude. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just like, if you're on this call and you're not willing to do $150, you haven't listened to the shit that I've ever said to you, because that's bottom line. You have to spend money in this business to make it. Bottom line. So sorry, go ahead.
No, it's cool.
Let's assume you have the money.
Yeah, let's just assume, like, okay, you have $150, it's $5 a day. Now, with a lot of the industries that I focus on, $5 is a benchmark to acquire a lead. So in essence, by the end of the month, you should have at least 30 leads, right? So what you're already aware of is, okay, if I spend $5 a day, I can acquire a lead, hopefully, with the right amount of testing. And then over time, I'm able to optimize my campaign. I'm able to see whether or not an ad's working or not. I could try out some new audiences. But the point is that $5 gets you started. You know, whether it's one ad set or it's one, you know, one ad set with one interest or one ad set with 20 interests in it, you're starting. You're starting out. Now, of course, it's always a better idea to spend more, because the more that you could spend, the more data you can acquire, and the more data you have, the more you can improve your skill. But if you're starting out, you're a solopreneur, you don't really have an offer, but you got some stuff you can give away, especially with tools like Lead Pages. You can start building a list before you even have a website. $5 a day is all you need. You know, and then you get some people on a list, and you and I both know this, Bill. It doesn't take you 10,000 people to get a sale of something. It might only be 10 people who love you, and one of them buys your thing.
Dude, it's funny you say that, because my most common selling features back in the day were the fact that, like, everything I did was, it was exactly like what the normal person would do, right? And I could sell, like, look, I don't have a big list, and I guess by standards of, like, the big boys in the industry, I don't. But you can make a healthy living off, like, I was kicking guys' asses with lists of 5,000 people, and they had, like, double that. So it's, yeah, I mean, as long as you're out there, you're taking the action, you're spending the money, you don't need to move mountains. And I think one of the key things, as much as we talk about people maybe having some issues with money, it's just that commitment to the long term, right? Because now you're getting out of that shiny button syndrome, and you're like, all right, look, David and Bill got on this call. They said $5 a day. I'm looking for 30 leads. Well, 30 leads is more than you have, right? And it might not be the money. It's just the fact that they're committing to a month of doing the same shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, okay, that's cool. So that's good. So $5 a day should equal how many leads at the end of the month, right? Or would you break it down into weekly? Should they recoup weekly or check it weekly? Should they check it daily? Like, what's the, because I've spent $5, and I'll tell you, $5 is a quick chew down. So how do you break your analysis up? Is it a daily, a weekly, a monthly kind of deal?
I mean, I look at my ads every single day, right? But what I'm really looking at is the lifetime of the campaign. And I analyze the campaign every day, but you don't really have a fair assessment until day 3 or the end of day 3. So you have your ads running for 72 hours. That's my methodology, okay? It's not the rule of thumb. It's not the industry standard. That's how I run my ads. So 3 days in, 72 hours have passed. I have click data. I have opt-in data or registration data, wherever it may be. And I'm able to see what ads are acquiring those leads and which ones are not. And so, you know, in that same methodology, you're basically saying that every 3 days you could try a new test. And in a 30-day month, you have 10 different tests that you can run, and you're still only running $5 a day, right? Yeah. So every 3 days, you're spending $15 to try something new. Or maybe you hit it right out the gate, and your first $5 that day, you get 3 leads. And you're like, wow, okay, I got 3 leads today. Let me leave this alone. And all of a sudden, you're getting 2-3 leads a day with $5.
That sounds like magic.
Now you leave it alone, you know? Now you're hitting on something, and that's when people get excited. That is when they realize, like, maybe if I put $10 in a day, maybe if I put 15. Because the only reason why someone starts out with 5 is because they're scared.
Yeah.
It's not because they can't afford it. It's because they're scared they're going to lose their ass.
Well, I remember the AdWords back in the day. I don't remember how much money I lost because some course put me on AdWords, and I couldn't even figure out how to get back to it. And it's like I get this bill at the end of the month for like $400 or $500. I'm like, what the hell? I think I tried one ad, and now all you do is click a tab and you're there, so it's good.
Exactly, and at least with Facebook, you could set a limit and make sure that it never goes above the limit. You know, I know that with AdWords back in the day, it's like you could set limits. But if you ticked off the wrong box, all of a sudden that limit was like on a per hour, or, you know, oh, it only spent $20 a day, But if the result gets this, then go ahead and boost it 100%. You know, so all of a sudden people were spending double what they were supposed to, and it's because of the settings. Whereas in Facebook, you can actually put an account gap where you're like, I can't spend more than $1,000 on this account, and then once the account hits 1,000, it stops. It just stops. And so, to me, that's great for people on a budget, for people who are scared, for people who, they just don't want to go past a certain point. I mean, I have friends who are spending $20 a day of their own money. They do very well. They spend $20 a day. They have an e-commerce store, and for every $20 they're spending, they're getting 10 sales of a $100 item. Why aren't you spending more than $20 if you're making 1,000?
Excuse me.
Some people just don't know how to scale. They don't believe in themselves, and that's really where, in advertising, it's just like stock trading, because I used to trade stocks. It could be emotional, or you can do it just based off certain triggers and certain methods and strategies that you understand. See, because I run my ads with those strategies. If I do it off emotion, I typically fail. Typically.
I think that's a great point, though, like for any of this business stuff, because and the worst part is if you do a lot of failing, you kind of get used to an emotionless response to your failure. Like, you don't even get mad about it. It's just that win. That win sends you up, and you're like, holy shit. And it keeps people riding that roller coaster of like win, lose, win, lose, win, lose. Whereas everything's like that. I mean, last year, 2015, I think, the end of 2014 was when I finally started jumping into the stocks. And you got to be low-key, man. Like, you just got to let it ride out, stick to the plan, and just have faith in I know that's tough to say, but have faith in the process of what's going to happen, because there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, but the whole goal here in the end is that we come out on top, and the only way we come out on top is getting better. So the next question, because you mentioned it a few times now, and I don't think people truly know, because again, there's like 600 different ways to skin a cat. Scaling. Some people will say scale up. Some people will say from 5, just jump up to 10 and gradually, incrementally scale up, because you're going to set off this trigger in Facebook, which will do this and that and the whole thing. So when it comes to scaling, they've done their $5 a day. They're getting, let's say they're getting even 1 lead a day, which good times, man. I'll take it for $5. Where do you go from there? Like, how do you move that up? Is that something you base on your return on investment? Is that just something you base on lead flow? Like, where do you go with the scale, or is it just purely money? Like, I spent 5, so now I'll spend 10.
Right, and the funny thing is, I actually wrote a post about this a couple of days ago. So there's the scaling fast and scaling slow methodology, right? With short-term campaigns, short-term meaning like 7 to 10 days, you have to scale fast. You have to scale fast because you're within a window, and your window of time is 7 to 10 days. So if you use my method of waiting 3 days before you optimize, if you start on day 1 through 3, and let's say it's a 7-day campaign, you only have 4 days to scale. So a ad set that was running at $25 a day, it's getting great results. In your mind, you're going to say, okay, I need to go from 25 to 100 because I have a set budget and I only have 4 days. Right? Whereas with a long-term campaign, which is what most people are doing, lead generation, auto webinars, maybe they're nurturing an email sequence of people before they start selling, that's a 30-day and beyond campaign, which means you could scale slow. Because yes, my belief, not verified, my belief based off my own testing, is in certain niches and certain interests, there is this baseline or this benchmark of how much you could spend per day before you trigger something and your cost per lead increases dramatically, right? I've had ad sets that have started at $10 and I've increased them every 3 days another $10. And by the time that it got to, let's say, $80 a day, when I got it to 90, all of a sudden the cost per lead went from $3 a lead to $4.50. Okay, I noticed something's going on here, so let me revert back to 80. And if you notice that the ads consolidate back to how they were performing before, that's your baseline. That's as high as you can go. That's my belief.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds practical application, right? It's like if it goes up and then you go back down and it's still up, then obviously you know that something's up. But if it goes back down, then you've got, yeah, that's cool. I like that. That's actually...
Yeah, so it's, you ride the trend, but as it keeps going up, you're like, oh, my lead flow is going up and the cost is staying the same. And that is where you know that scaling slowly is working. There are plenty of cases, let's say with like e-commerce stuff, where I might spend 20 bucks a day on an item, and then all of a sudden I notice it's doing well, and I might just say, screw it, $100 a day. And what I'll do is I'll watch that same trend. I've quadrupled the budget, 25 to 100, I've quadrupled it, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm still getting a ton of sales, and my cost per acquisition maybe went up $1, but I'm still making really good money. I'll leave it alone, right? So it really depends on, A, what is your return on what you're selling, if you are selling something. And if you're doing, let's say, like a webinar or a lead gen campaign, and you have to wait a little bit longer to see what the results are, just set up a second experiment or a second webinar or something like that so that you can do one campaign slowly, and then maybe you do the second one a little faster and see how it pans out. Because I run a lot of people's campaigns, and when they have those really in-depth long-term campaigns, we do everything slow. Yeah. But we do slow with a lot of variations. So if you wanted to spend $10,000 in a month, yeah, you might have a bunch of ad sets at $20 a day. But you have 4 different countries running X amount of ad sets per day. It's going to equate to, $400 or $500 a day. We're just running more experiments with less money in each group.
It's funny. People are like, why keep looking? I'm looking at the time because I know David's got somewhere to be in less than 20 minutes, and I want to make sure that I'm getting stuff. But so someone's in there, and you mentioned e-com, and you're talking about these big digits and shit like that. Like people will spend 10 grand, which we know isn't necessarily the top of the line ad spend for the month. But yeah, the one thing I always hear is that Facebook ads don't work, or you explain interest to someone. What would you say when you're going to set up your ad? Because now we've got this well-balanced, we're thinking about ROI. Perhaps these people weren't thinking about cost per lead and all that stuff, which you should be, so good for bringing that up. What's the baseline for getting in there and being like, okay, what's the key here? Like, is the age the key? Is the interest the key? If so, what's a little trick to make sure that I'm finding the right interest for what I'm doing? Do you have like a little hack for that kind of deal? Because I think the actual audience research is probably the number one killer of people's efforts, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say that's accurate? How do they combat that?
A lot of people overanalyze. That's really what they do, is they overanalyze, right? So most people, when they jump in a market, don't truly understand that market. It's like, okay, there's a lot of 25-year-olds in this group, and it goes all the way to 65. Well, of course, because there's all sorts of people in the industry who want your stuff. But you might find that 80% of those people are between 30 and 55. Okay, so let's automatically just start with where the majority's at. But when I am setting up ads, I'm really looking at what individual interests, or let's say group of interests that are similar, are generating the result. So let's just use internet marketing as an example, right? You could target Ryan Dice, you could target Frank Kern, you could target Perry Belcher, and a ton of people, right? But what people in Dice's audience may not be the same in Kern. And so what I would do is I set up ad sets to where each ad set, if the audience is above a certain number, let's just say above 20,000 people, each interest has its own ad set. So Dice is an ad set, Kern is an ad set, Phil Same, Jenkins, all the big time guys, or maybe broader interests like search engine marketing, search engine optimization, internet marketing, online marketing. Now those audiences are huge, but it's an individual interest within the ad set. And what I'm able to gauge, let's say, like I said, 30 to 55, that's the age group I'm going to target because that's where 80% of the people are. Now I'm able to see which of those interests within the age group is generating the result that I want. And that's how I'm able to sort of hone in on the core interest that generates the sales. Because I focus on a lot of interests, I split them all up, and like I said, I scale slow. So if I'm doing $5 a day across 30 different ad sets, yeah, I'm spending $150 a day. But over 3 days, I've spent $450, and now I have 10 interests that have generated all of my leads. So what happens? I turn off 20 experiments, and I now have 10 winners. Now I just leave them alone, and I'm still running $5 a day. So those 10 that are winning, I'm only spending $50 a day now, not scaling anything, but my cost per lead is far lower. The click costs are going to be the same, but the cost per lead is lower. I'm saving money, and I have winners. And so I know that for the future, once the campaign has gathered some data, I could look at, are they coming from desktop or are they coming from mobile? What age is opting in the most? Is it 35? Is it 45? Is it male or female? Because I already know the interest. Now I can dig deeper. And so I focus on the interest first. That's what I do.
Okay, cool. That's I'm just thinking about that. That's actually it just hits to me. It just sounds like I'm because I always try and find what the problem is for the people that might be listening. And to me, I just think it's not necessarily understanding what your offer is at the end of the day, right? Like even if and cool part about the niche was you talked about how people don't necessarily understand their niche. My test for one of our products was dog collars, light up dog collars. But I never would have done that before because I've been like, who the hell is going to buy a light-up dog collar? Then I got a pug. And I'm like, I would buy a light-up dog collar, so who the hell would? I'm going to check people with pugs. And sure enough, that was the key to getting it going because people with pugs like to make them look silly. It's just, I understood the market once I kind of got in it. But it just sounds like people don't really understand, I think, what their end goal is, which allows them that confidence in the beginning. So since I know that we're running out of time with you here, if you could close out with talking about kind of like what do you think the biggest problems that face newbies are? Like, let's just give them 3 examples of the problems they have and just like a quick 1 or 2 sentences on how they can overcome it. Because you've already, first of all, everyone that's watching this, you need to understand like, what you would pay for this kind of sit down with David is absolutely insane. So this is crazy. And I can tell just by sitting here that people are going to be like, holy shit, that was awesome stuff. So let's close it off with what are 3 problems they have and then how would you quickly combat those to just give them that push that 18-year-old college kid had when he got started?
Right. So first off, this is just something that I experienced when I first started with Facebook ads. The one thing that I sort of hated and truly just like pushed away was the research. The research is going to be the longest part of this whole process. And by research, I mean, yes, Facebook has the audience insight tool that tells you exactly what people like, what are they interested in, how much is their income. And a lot of people neglect that information, because all they think about is the interest, right? I just told you I focus on the interest, but how did I pick those interests? I had to look at what people like, what pages do they like, what do they eat, where do they go, how old are they, what is their gender? If I'm going to target someone who's going to buy a product on how to run Instagram ads, obviously I want to look at the Instagram audience, all the people who are interested in Instagram on Facebook, but guess what? That may not be your most targeted person. Who are the people that run Instagram ads? Advertisers, people who look up advertising information and marketing information and business owners, photographers or chefs or people who love imagery. So now I have to dig deeper into those people. And a lot of individuals that I work with, they never go beyond what they already know. They never try to investigate the next level of person that might buy the information that they have to sell or buy the product that they're looking to sell.
And so is there a little hack that you have for that? Like, how like I personally, when I sit down, I look at it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to really expand on this niche and I'm going to dig right into it. And then I go dogs, dog parks, pet food. Yeah. And then I'm stuck. Like, do you have a hack for that?
Yeah, so so with my SEO background, I figured, okay, there has to be a reason why Google is so awesome when it comes to looking up keywords. So I use the Google Display Planner and the Google Keyword Planner because Keyword planner, obviously, for many reasons, just gives you a bunch of different keywords related to what you are trying to sell, and then it's potential interest that you could look up in Facebook to see if they come up. But if you want to go deeper, you use the display planner. And why is that? The display planner gives you topics, it gives you interests, and what I love the most is it gives you placements. Placements meaning there might be a girl on YouTube who has a very popular YouTube channel that you had no idea about, and you type in her name in Facebook and she's an interest. And she targets the same people that you do, except she's on YouTube and you're on Facebook, right? Yeah. So next thing you know, you're getting famous brands on other channels that you could target on Facebook that you never would have thought of because you decided to use a search engine to gather that data. I mean, I use the display planner for a lot of different projects that I work on, for different placement locations, or like maybe there's websites that I never thought of that come up as interests. You know, like when you're in the SEO space, everyone thinks of Moz, right? SEO Moz, and you know they're like the biggest website when it comes to SEO stuff, or you know Search Engine Land or Search Engine Watch and all that. But if you dig deeper, you also realize that a lot of those people use tools, right? So what tools do they use? They use SpyFu, they use Ahrefs, they use a bunch of these tools. And so what do? You type in those tool names and voila, there's a whole audience of people who buy those tools. And so now you have a whole new group of people to target. So display planner, if I'm targeting certain people, I also go to Amazon and I look at the best sellers of like the certain books or certain product companies, and I see if they come up. So for example, when I was doing some real estate campaigns, I went to the bestseller section of the books, and then I typed in real estate investing or real estate wholesaling or whatever it was, and I just looked at the authors that came up under the best-selling list and then looked to see if they were interested in Facebook.
Gotcha.
Because those are people that are most susceptible to buying the information, right? So that's the core. The first thing is the research portion. Everyone wants to speed through that, but that's the most important part. Setting up a campaign takes 15 minutes. Doing the research might take you 3 hours.
Yeah.
But that's the information you want in order to convert immediately.
And how bad do you want it, right? Like,
yeah.
Suck it up. 3 hours of your time. If you only got an hour a week, that's 3 days, and then you can start your campaign, but you know you've actually put the effort in. I really like that tool because you'll go and you'll just start typing into Facebook. You'll be like, do this, do that. Oh, no, that's not an interest. That's not an interest. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to do that. That's dope. I appreciate that. So, okay, number two, because I know you're crunched.
Yeah. So number two, the other thing that I believe most people, it sort of like stops them in their tracks, and what you really need to overcome is the pricing or the cost or the budget, right? Well, I know we've talked about this, but that really is the next step. You know, you neglect the research, and now that you have the research, you don't have money to spend, or you believe you don't have enough money to spend. So everyone knows now, I say to spend $5. What you really need to do is look at your overall numbers. I mean, this is about to become a find out how much you are making per month on average. Then find out how much you spend on your bills, and then find out how much you spend on that will help you increase your ad budget. In my case, when I first started, I realized that I was going out to eat way too much. And when I cut out like 2 or 3 times a week that I went out, I now had like an extra $200-300 to spend.
And quickly, how many times a week can you eat out now if you want?
Every day.
Good times. So I wanted to put that sacrifice to gain in there because sometimes the money just doesn't work. So, oh, I lose my latte. You get 8 lattes down the road, so do it up. Okay, so what's number 3? We got like 2 minutes before I have to kick you off because you're important and have other things to do.
Number 3 is don't be scared to turn off your campaign. Okay? And what I mean by this is not, oh, the campaign's done and that's it. I'm talking about your offer. Don't be scared to realize that maybe people don't want what you have to offer. Maybe you need to rephrase it. Maybe you need to offer a little something different. You know, everyone offers SEO, but what makes your SEO different? Right. The first time around, you might realize that the way you positioned it is not what people want. You know, there's a lot of people who do Facebook ads. You know this, Bill. I do Facebook ads. There's a ton of other people that do this. But the reason why people come to me is because I'm transparent. My cost is efficient for a lot of people's business, and I'm very good at educating the client on what it is that I do. I don't leave you in the dust and you don't, feel like you're lost. And because of that, my service is unique. Mm-hmm. And when I first started promoting myself, I was like everyone else. So I had to kill my campaign. I was no different than Joe Schmo down the street who's working from his basement doing Facebook ads. I had the same offer. So don't be scared to tweak and make changes to what it is you're trying to sell, because that one little change could end up going from 1 lead a day to 5 leads a day. Or it might go from 1 customer a month to 10 customers a month. So you have to be willing to fail, but also be willing to accept that a campaign might be a loser and you need to make some changes.
Cool, man. All right, I appreciate that, and I know that everyone's gonna love this. I know the Facebook junkies are just sitting there waiting, and as soon as they see your name, they're just gonna go, shit, I gotta get on that. So I want to thank you for taking the time out. I'm gonna see you in Florida in less than 2 months here, I guess. I guess it's like 2 months almost exactly. Maybe we'll do a recap show or something like that then. But thank you very much for your time, everybody. This was episode 2, Behind the Hype, David Schloss. There's links and info down below about him and how to pay attention to him and all that kind of cool stuff. Thanks very much, David, and everybody. We'll see you in the next one where I talk to somebody else about something powerful that could help you out. Later. All right, let me just stop.